The morning sun shines on the face, it is warm. Du Yu was muttering something in his mouth. After a long time, he narrowed his eyes in a daze. It's another day, strange, why didn't I hear the alarm clock ringing? Du Yu muttered in a daze, and stretched his hand to the side. After groping for a long time, his eyes suddenly widened. My phone, who stole my phone? Du Yu, who was still lying down, sat up all of a sudden as if he had cheated on a corpse. But after getting up, Du Yu was dumbfounded, this was not his bed at all. That's right, my home is obviously a wooden bed, or most people have similar furniture in their homes, but now I lie on something, this is an iron shelf, or a top bunk. I haven't slept in this kind of bunk in many years. Remember that I once slept in this kind of bed when I was still in school. Am I dreaming? This dream is too real. Du Yu was dumbfounded, and touched his face. There was a feeling. Du Yu, who was still confused at first, touched his arm, but he still felt it, and he could feel it hot or cold. Suddenly, Du Yu was cruel and squeezed at himself. Oh my god, what I pinch myself to do, it's all green, no, this is not a dream. Du Yu, whose reaction seemed to be slow, finally realized that something was wrong. Turned over and jumped down from the bed, with a puff, it seemed that he had a good grasp of the height. Du Yu was anxious and didn't realize that his body seemed to be much more flexible than he thought. Looked around, isn't this my dormitory? The nix on this, the traces of this coffee table burned by the alcohol stove, this is my original dormitory, could it be said that someone was playing a prank? Or I was born again? While thinking, Du Yu hurriedly ran to the bathroom in the dormitory, where there was a mirror. Ha 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 ha, I really have been born again, and I have come to a good life. I have lost everything that I lost all these years. I want to be a rich man, and I want to stand on top of the world. Looking at the young teenage face in the mirror, isn't that exactly what I looked like when I was in school? Ha 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 ha, was I still handsome when I was young? Du Yu stroked his chin with his fingers. No, I want to calm down, I want to calm down. First understand some of the current situation, and then make a plan. Don't let people discover that I am reborn, otherwise it will be in trouble. Du Yu took a deep breath and tried to calm himself down. Walking around in the dormitory, I suddenly slapped my head, why am I so stupid? It won't be good to forget some things for too long. No, you have to write them down and write them down. By the way, use code words to show others. I don't understand. After rummaging through the cabinet for a while, Du Yu finally came back to his senses. Really, why is it not calm at all? How could there be pen and paper in our dormitory? Aren't those things in the classroom? It's the same in my own dormitory, let alone a schoolmaster, there is not even a good study. Everyone is here to mix diplomas. How can there be pens and papers in such a dormitory? For a better future, I must write down the clear things in my mind as soon as possible. Du Yu thought of this, and no matter how much, he took his wallet and prepared to go to the canteen to buy paper and pen. Rushing to find his wallet, Du Yu hurriedly ran outside. Du Yu was stunned just when he arrived at the door of the dormitory. What day is this? Has the school ever had such an event? Du Yu stood at the door of the dormitory, feeling a crow flying over his head, this scene is too ridiculous. Outside of the dormitory, there is still his familiar layout, but this person, why is it so strange? If he didn't feel the vitality in his body and made sure that he was not being pranked, he would really think that someone deliberately spent a lot of money to fool himself. In front of me, what was that who had just walked past, the old man with white beard? Does anyone still grow their beard this long? This is 1 meter. What the was doing on the side of the road? A sniper rifle in his hand was quickly being disassembled into parts. What kind of gun? This is too simulation. A small stall in front of me slowed down all kinds of firearms, and some people were asking for prices. Is it really good to sell artificial guns in schools? This thing is not illegal, right? There are also the bullets. In front of the door, a group of girls passed by. The girls are fine, but what kind of dress is this, horse monkey shaku? By the way, is this? I don't remember this kind of activity in my memory. There is also an old farmer, carrying a big basket. What's in it, Chinese medicine? Does the school still have the classification of Chinese medicine? Why do a group of people come up to ask for the price? What was the last thing flying in the sky? This must not be a hot air balloon anymore. It is an airship. Moreover, it is the kind that carries a weapon, so this weapon is also fake. What the is going on with me? Did you reading www.yuyuganshu.com have hallucinations? Why did the school become like this? Do you look dazed? Why the whole world has changed? Isn't it rebirth that I'm not reborn, but that I'm not going through it? It's not right, it must be fake, it must be something the school is doing, it is absolutely impossible. Du Yu shook his head vigorously, somehow not sure what the situation was. No, let's buy a book first. Thinking of this, Du Yu forcibly ignored everything around him and walked towards the canteen in his memory. Fortunately, there is no change here, I know. Seeing the canteen in his memory, Du Yu finally showed a relieved expression, but just walked in and inhaled it again. This is a canteen. Welcome, what do you want to buy, my little brother? I have the most comprehensive ruled guide here. You are the last year this year. You can't do without this ruled guide. I also have the best bulletproof vests here, and a series of various tools. They are the most common ones that will not cause the exclusion of the derivative world and can be brought in. They are suitable for those of you in the graduating class. Under the ceremonious recommendation of the commissary lady, Du Yu bought some strange things in a daze. Although the prices are a bit too cheap, do you need them? Standing outside the canteen, Du Yu hugged the things in his hands, feeling like to cry without tears. Who am I? Where am I? What am I doing? Du Yu, who was confused about the situation, went back to the dormitory before waking up. No, what the is going on? Why is it different from what I thought? Du Yu finally recovered his ability to think. New book upload, ask for recommendation, ask for collection. First of all, thank you for your support. The update of the new book period is relatively slow. Those who are short of books can read the old book The Rise of Plants. Went out for a walk, did not buy the book he wanted, but bought a set of very strange things. Don't ask why it is a set, because these things are packed in a bag. There are many such bags in the canteen. When Du Yu was shopping, other people came in to buy. When he came out, Du Yu still remembered that many people were holding such a set of things in their hands. There is a book, but it is not blank, but a regularized guide. What is going on in this school? Wait, I'll stroke it first. First of all, this is a dormitory. But this is not a university dormitory, it is a high school dormitory, so there should be no problem. This year should be the last year before graduation. Du Yu analyzed bit by bit. In my memory there has never been such a thing in school, without these weird activities. In other words, high school will not allow students to do such things. My physical condition tells me I must have been born again, so suppose I was really born again, and the school is like this. Du Yu's eyes were solemn, so, now I am not only reborn, but also traversed, or the world traversed. Forget it, no matter who traversed, in any case, I have to figure out the situation first. Suddenly, Du Yu said again, if it is a crossing, then I should have a golden finger, please come out quickly. A group of crows flew over the head, nothing happened. Well, since there are no cheats, there should always be memories, let me recall. Du Yu closed his eyes and tried to calm himself down. Yes, he is not really remembering something, but calming himself down. In a short period of time, too much has happened. If I don't calm myself down, I'm really worried that my head will explode. I don't know how long it has passed, Du Yu himself didn't notice it, and it took a long time for him to close his eyes. If it was the self I used to be, I would have been impatient, but I could still keep my eyes closed. This kind of calmness is really comfortable, and this feeling seems a bit familiar. Suddenly, Du Yu felt a violent pain in his head, his eyes went dark and he didn't know anything. I don't know how long it has passed. When Du Yu opened his eyes again, there seemed to be something more in his eyes. Well, it seems that meditation is still fruitful, at least I have a little more memory. Du Yu suddenly jumped up, I'm special, can you finish it for me, what do you mean? Du Yu wanted to cry without tears, he already understood what had happened, he had indeed crossed. The soul of this body has not completely dissipated yet. As for what happened to this body, he didn't know. But in short, I am now the main body, at least that's not bad. The soul of this body is also called Du Yu, after all, is it him? There can be no problem, Du Yu thought in his heart. The two souls begin to fuse, there is no problem. But the question arises in the fusion, why only half of the fusion? That's right, Du Yu could feel that deep in his consciousness, the fusion of the two souls was only halfway through. The two souls are like two-headed monsters, just mixed together, slowly merging little by little. The pain just now was also caused by the fusion of the soul. The half result of this fusion is that the soul of the original body has hardly absorbed any memory by himself. Only some very deep memories have been inherited by myself. The life experience is the same. Both parents without dog blood have died, and their parents are still the same as before. They don't go home all the year round because they are research workers. In my memory, there has been no news of them for a long time. When I was very young, I grew up with my grandfather. Later, when my grandfather passed away, it was my sister who took care of her. But since my sister left to go to college a few years ago, she rarely came back. The last time I came back, it was 2 years ago. I don't know what special missions are, and there has been no news until now. In the past 2 years, I basically rely on myself to take care of myself. Fortunately, I'm still rich at home, and I haven't let myself suffer. I don't have any childhood sweethearts, nor do I have anything to do with Banhua's schoolgirls. Even in school, my sense of existence is very low, everything is so normal, almost the same as before I crossed. This ordinary is too much, I can't be a fake traverser. If these are nothing, then some of the next memories will make Du Yu depressed. This world is really not a normal world anymore. Because this world is an era of global travel. In the vague memory, history has not changed a few hundred years ago. But just a few hundred years ago, probably when it should have been the Ming dynasty, history suddenly took a big turn. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com. Since that day, many fantasy worlds suddenly descended. Some of the human beings with strong spiritual power can communicate with these worlds, thereby entering into them to obtain various abilities, and mankind has entered an era of personal force. In addition to some alien creatures that crossed the world from other worlds at that time, as well as the mutation of native creatures, mankind has entered the Dark Age. After 100 years of Dark Age, mankind has regained its footing. What was going on is gone in my memory. I don't know if the original Du Yu didn't study well or was lost when he merged his memory. In short, since that time, people no longer read and study, but mainly study other worlds. The strength of every country in the human world depends on the development of other worlds. There are no nuclear weapons in this world, and there are not even many high-tech weapons in memory, but there are a lot of black technology things, I don't know where I got them, but no one has studied them in depth. It seems that under the suppression of the laws of the world, research on these things on the earth has yielded no results. These students, they have to start exercising since they were young. A large part of what you learn and exercise is related to fighting. For example, my body exercises basic swordsmanship and basic meditation. No wonder I closed my eyes before and I calmed down naturally. It turned out that this is not one's own ability, but an instinct. Unfortunately, most of the memories have disappeared. Only the most memorable things are kept. Fortunately, the swordsmanship has been preserved, otherwise it will be in trouble after 3 days. Du Yu said to himself with a sad face. Because he remembered it, 3 days later, it was time for the school to become lawful. It was a destiny decision. Although I know that regularization is very important, it is even more important than the college entrance examination, but what is regularization? That's right, the most critical details in the memory are gone, this is half of the fusion, and it is really harmful. This kind of fusion made Du Yu feel that it was not as good as not, because there were too few things inherited. Wait, don't I have a regularization guide? There should be one on it. Du Yu suddenly remembered that a book recommended to him by the auntie aunt before, didn't he buy it in a daze? Sure enough, I am so wise and martial, I prepared it in advance. Du Yu, who was having fun in suffering, praised himself, then took out the ruled guide in his hand and opened it. It's just that the more you look at it, the more resentful Du Yu will be. Why didn't you come earlier or later? It turns out that the rule of law is a transformation of one's own body. Several hundred years ago, some powerful people used all means to transform some special worlds in order for their descendants to develop well. These derivative worlds have become satellite planes of the Earth, and they are also planes used for regularization. Entering these worlds often involves various battles, and the results of the battles are used to determine whether they have the potential to become an awakened. Once it is completed, it will become the awakened and the body will be regularized. In Du Yu's opinion, this is like turning the body into a digitized body in the game. There may be differences. After all, this is the real world. Regularization of completion is a shortcut to accelerate the learning of various skills and bear their own strength, but the awakened also have levels. The higher the degree of completion, the stronger the potential, and the better the template should be at that time. Du Yu's face became even more miserable. You will kill me for everything. It's fine if you don't practice well. Even the memory is missing so much for me. Are you really going to let me mess around? Rulization is the most important way in life. According to the book, less than 1 in 10 people can complete the process of rulization. After completion, it is the awakened, and the awakened is the nobleman of the new earth. This is a status that arises because of its own strength. It is an actual nobleman, with various privileges, which is superior to ordinary people. Ordinary people who have not become the awakened can only serve the awakened. The noble people in this world are all awakened ones. And the minimum requirement of the rule is to be 18 years old. Counting time, isn't it exactly 18 years old this year? There are a total of 3 chances to complete the regularization, and the highest cannot be over 30 years old. All 3 chances have failed. There is no hope for life. Over the age of 30, the body's ability to withstand the law is weakened, and there is no such hope. Legalization is good. Once you become an awakened one, you will stay away from all diseases, no matter what type. And the lifespan will continue to extend with the improvement of strength. Has various benefits, which are not listed here. I'm afraid, these are common sense, but what I lack now is this common sense. According to my own feelings, the 2 souls in my mind must be completely merged, and it will take at least a month. I don't care if such a long time is placed at other times, but what is the situation now? There are 3 days left, and 3 days is the time to make a decision. After finally starting again, Du Yu didn't want to continue to be a salted fish at the bottom of society. No, if you can't complete the law, your situation may be worse than in the previous life. Looking back on the miserable life of the previous life, it seems to have been yesterday. This was obviously yesterday, okay, I just slept. Du Yu didn't know whether his traversal was a good thing or a bad thing, and he wouldn't be the kind of person who would shame the traverser without any exception. Judging from the current situation, this is very possible. If that's the case, it's better not to wear it. I don't know how long it has passed before Du Yu finally calmed down. Putting his hands together, Du Yu has accepted the current situation. Parents and relatives in the previous life, I hope you can have a good time. Du humorously prayed silently, but fortunately, there was an older sister taking care of him. In the last life, my sister was not an ordinary person, and I should be able to live better without my own little brother who is dragging down. In this life, I hope I won't continue to hold back. No matter what, let's try first. How many things have I inherited? Du Yu suddenly got up, and instinctively took the long sword he had placed on the bedside and pulled it out. This long sword was always on the head of the bed, but because I was too excited, I didn't pay attention. Although this dormitory is almost the same as the one in my memory, there are still some differences, such as this sword. My previous self, there was no such thing in the dormitory. Drew out the sword, the cold light flickered. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com. This is not for decoration, but really made of fine steel, which can be used for combat. The long sword seemed to have come alive in his hand, with a little bit of brilliance, and at a glance, the sword was full of energy, and it was really bluffing. This set of basic swordsmanship was formed after countless improvements. The basic swordsmanship practiced by all people in the world are similar, and the differences are only minor adjustments based on race and body shape. I have practiced this set of swordsmanship for more than 10 years. Gradually, Du Yu felt that this sword seemed to have become an extension of his body. Some unfamiliar parts were gradually becoming familiar with the exercise. Even in this cramped dormitory, I can easily control the long sword, perhaps because I often practice here, because the various movements are too familiar. It is impossible to fight in an open place in another world, so shooting in a narrow place is also a basic requirement. With my swordsmanship, maybe I can become a powerful swordsman. Du Yu nodded, and took the long sword back smartly, but this time he was extremely happy and sorrowful. The long sword was not inserted into the scabbard, but stabbed in his hand. Pretending to be forced. Du Yu had a cold sweat on his face. Fortunately, he didn't use too much force, otherwise he would really destroy himself. I don't know how much my swordsmanship can rank, there is no comparison at all. This memory, can I retain some common sense? Du Yu cursed secretly while healed his wounds. The wound is not very serious, just put on a band-aid. I have to say that the effect of this band-aid is really good, and the pain is relieved as soon as it is applied. Oh my god, you actually bought this thing, are you trying to be aggressive? A voice rang at the door. Since there is no treatment in the legend, Du Yu walked into the library, looking for things that interest him. First of all, we must first understand the world, this is common sense in common sense. If you don't even know these, then it will be dangerous to be suspected. Well, the history of the world, and the history of world development, very good, just these 2 books. Du Yu picked up the book in his hand and walked to an empty table. A person next to him seemed to have noticed Du Yu. When he saw the 2 books in his hands, a flash of disdain flashed in his eyes. At this time, I still read these useless books. Du Yu glared at that guy. Even with your pocky face, you still dare to look down on yourself, don't you know that your face is just right? Although I don't dress up very much, my appearance is also top-notch. But Du Yu didn't quarrel with anyone at this time. That's not a hero, that's a brain damage. Sat in his seat and opened the book. Seeing that Du Yu didn't say anything, the other party continued to read the book with a bored expression. This is the library, and it's not good for anyone to make trouble. In this world, changes are really caught off guard. Du Yu looked at the development history of the world in his hands. In his memory, he only explained the darkness of hundreds of years ago, but he did not elaborate. Now seeing the records in the book, Du Yu understands a little bit. At that time, for the development of the world and for the survival of human beings on Earth, The predecessors of various countries have desperately explored in other worlds. People who died for various reasons are no longer counted. In short, the book records that the death rate of people who entered another world at that time was as high as 90%. It can be said that the awakened is the most unpopular occupation. Of course, at that time, there was no such systematic rulization as it is now, and it was naturally ruled after a long period of time to explore the alien world, which can be said to have suffered a lot. Everything in the future was bought by the predecessors with blood and life. The ability to form such a systematic training mechanism today was also something that the predecessors of hundreds of years ago desperately won for the younger generations. Sure enough, no matter when there is a crisis, there will always be such an admirable person. Du Yu muttered, because he didn't empathize with him, so he just took a look. What makes Du Yu most incredible is that the current world composition is almost unified. The whole world is divided into 5 parts. After the great changes hundreds of years ago, the powers of various regions began to annex or unite each other, and finally formed several regions and alliances. First of all, it is the Asian League where he belongs, which occupies almost the entire area of Asia, and can be regarded as the largest alliance in the world. The Chinese nation occupies a dominant position in the middle. In this life, the Chinese nation is one of the top nations in the world. As for the island country to the east, well, they have no chance to do the kind of wicked things they had done in their previous lives. If Huaxia hadn't helped out, I'm afraid they would have been destroyed by various natural and man-made disasters. Now, the island nation is China's most loyal brother, at least on the surface. The second largest is the European Union, which is the previous major European countries, plus the Oceania. Don't ask how they are connected. They are connected by space gates. On the Earth, distance is not a problem. This black technology. Du Yu shook his head with emotion. The third largest alliance is the US alliance, which is the North American one. These 3 alliances are the 3 largest alliances in the world today, and they are also the strongest. The South American area is rather chaotic. There are too many internal factions, which makes it far less powerful than the other 3 leagues. It is called the SAARC and ranks 4th in overall strength. The weakest is the African Union, which is the former Africa. Not only did the African Union fail to learn from other alliances, but it is still regressing. So far, the African Union is formed in the form of a tribal alliance. The big thing is that the leaders of several big tribes met together to study. Although the power of the O is scattered, but because of its brutal style, their combat effectiveness is not simple. As for the Arctic Ocean and Antarctica, these 2 places are not areas controlled by humans. Hundreds of years ago, there was no way for people to reach these 2 areas, so they were already occupied by mutant creatures and alien creatures. By now, these 2 areas have become forbidden areas for mankind, and attacks on the human world are often launched. I didn't expect the world to become like this, which is really eye-opening. However, Huaxia has become the most powerful nation in fact, and one of the top nations. This is really an honor. Du Yu grinned, thinking about it, too. China was the most powerful country in the world hundreds of years ago, with the largest population. In the face of adversity, Huaxia people have always been the most adaptable and fastest growing nation, and there is no one. Look at China today again. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com. Well, this is similar to the land of Kyushu in my memory, and it is also divided into 9 parts and numbered. My area is the Asian League, the China region, and the number 6 area. This location, which was formerly Shandong province, is roughly in this range. As expected, everything has changed, and the location of my home has not changed. It's just that when Du Yu was looking for something about regularization, he couldn't find it. I have found a lot of books, and these books are all ambiguous and have some marks. I can't understand them. Until the end, Du Yu saw a record in a book, which suddenly realized. It turns out that after entering the ruled world, no matter what happens, you can't disclose it to the outside world. When you agree to enter, it is equivalent to signing a contract. Forcibly violated, you will be severely punished. No wonder there is not. It seems that this punishment is not something ordinary people can bear. Damn it, ruled can only carry the most common equipment. Anything with special effects or high-tech items is unusable. Bringing in is a violation of the rules and will lower your own evaluation. What is this? The more he thinks of the rule, Do Yu feels more irritable in his heart. Forget it, no matter what, let's get out of here first. At least I will sharpen my gun and get acquainted with swordsmanship these days. Thinking of this, Du Yu is even more bitter, because his memory has not been completely inherited, and his swordsmanship is not as good as his original body. Even if you are familiar with it, it's not bad to be able to play 80% of its power. My own swordsman dream, shouldn't it be cut off? Du Yu thought bitterly, while walking towards the martial arts field. Yes, there is no playground in the school, there is only such a thing as a martial arts field. In the next 2 days, Du Yu checked some things in the library almost in the morning to supplement his lack of knowledge. From the afternoon to the evening, he had been training in the martial arts field, trying to adapt to his new body. There is no way. Although the instinct for swordsmanship is still there, most of the memories in the head are gone, and they can only be played on the spot by themselves. Du Yu didn't know how much he could play. But it's better to grind the gun beforehand than to do nothing. 2 days passed in a blink of an eye. Du Yu hasn't waited for the time to get used to it completely. Don't be so nervous, isn't it a regularized ritual? The big deal is to become a semi-awakened person, and then go with me as a security guard. Failure is not a big deal. The second child almost weighed on Du Yu's body, and Du Yu gave a blank glance. This is a turning point in a lifetime. How can these students who have not stepped into society realize the huge gap in social status? With the awakened in this world, the status gap will definitely be even greater. Without strength, there is no dignity, this Du Yu knows better than anyone present. I didn't have a chance in my previous life, but this life is different. In the face of regularization, almost everyone is standing on an almost equal starting line, and everyone is likely to succeed. Okay, I'm not nervous anymore. As he walked toward the martial arts field, Du Yu forcefully threw the second child off himself. Hey, the fourth child, you finally showed up, what are you doing these days? The boss spoke, and a tight guy who had wrapped himself took off his sunglasses, revealing a fair and handsome face. The fourth child of the self-proclaimed girl killer, indeed has the capital of pride, but he is a famous little boy in the school. However, this guy has always advertised that he is not inferior, so he only has a relationship with beautiful women. Whenever I chase a beautiful woman, I will soon get tired of it, and then I will switch to another target. But never took the last step with beautiful women. Although the fourth child has been hated to death, those women don't hate him much. Hey, I'm not hiding from Xiaoyun, you know, I can't help it. If it weren't for the rule of today, I really don't want to come out. The rule of law is a regulation of the alliance, and every person who reaches the age of 18 must do it once. And this time, it's free. If you conduct your own regularization in private, you will have to spend money. It is said that the price is still very high, and most people simply cannot afford it. I think you should have followed, Xiaoyun, what a good girl, she is beautiful, she has a good figure, and her family is not simple. The most important thing is that she is so devoted. It is rare to see such a girl. The boss's words made the fourth child even more depressed. Think about my suave little Beilong, how could I be forced to such a degree by a woman? For a tree, I would give up the entire large forest, how can I do this kind of thing? If it wasn't for that woman who was too hard-hearted, how could I be so embarrassed? Du Yu rolled his eyes, he still wanted to be treated like this, but unfortunately no one was chasing him. Forget it, let's not talk about you, in any case you can do it yourself. We are here, hurry in. They have a total of 6 classes in this session, and they are a big crowd when they are gathered together. On the martial arts field, there was a feeling of crowds at this time. The difference is that in the middle of the martial arts field, there are 10 more things like training warehouses, which are erected in the center of the martial arts field, and there are some light spots flying around. Such a magical scene can be seen in reality. Even if Du Yu had prepared, he was still a little surprised. Suddenly, Du Yu saw a woman next to the weird training room talking to someone. This woman seemed to be the center of the entire square, and it was hard not to pay attention. Not only has a strong aura, but also makes Du Yu, who has been baptized by many celebrities, a sense of surprise. It's just that this woman seems to be a little familiar, she should have seen it somewhere. What are you looking at? It turned out to be the goddess Xi Kyungsu of the second high school affiliated to the National Chiaotong University. I heard that she has been active recently. It seems that she is about to form a team and is contacting all hopefuls. What can you do to be beautiful? According to the law of the awakened, the more beautiful a woman is, the less likely it is to become an awakened through a regularized ritual. What law is this? Why haven't I heard of it? Du Yu was a little strange. The second child disdainfully said, many women who are beautiful don't like to practice very much. It's weird if they can pass the rules. The ones who can really pass should be like me, Kong Wu's powerful talents. The boss lifted up arm, made a very powerful movement, but this movement is too shameful. Not necessarily, many women of the awakened are very beautiful, for example. Before the fourth child finished speaking, the second child waved his hand. People who have been saved by psychic energy are not bad. Okay, don't make trouble, hurry up and line up. Yu reading www.yuyugonshu.com will be here soon. At this moment, a sharp voice suddenly sounded from behind. Hey, Four Toads, if you dare to discuss Xi Kyungsu, I really don't know what to say. What are you talking about, kid? Do you want to fight? The second child shouted and turned his head angrily. Just hit it, you think you are something. Behind, a handsome young man walked over. Look at this dress, like an embroidered pillow of a sorrowful bag. It's just that the people around him are not easy, none of them are inferior to their second child, guarding them like bodyguards. Du Yu quickly grabbed his second child, he would definitely suffer if he rushed up. What we say doesn't seem to have anything to do with you, you are too much. Du Yu looked at these people warily, and these people looked hard to provoke. How come there are such people in the school, so the school doesn't care? Time is running out today, I don't bother to care about you, wait for the rules to be done, let you look good. The younger brother gave them a disdainful look, and walked forward proudly step by step. Along the road, other students saw these people coming, so they avoided and gave way to the middle road. Well, what is it? If you fail after the rules are changed, see what face you have to see. The second spit, struggling out of Du Yu's arm, this guy's power is really terrifying. Don't provoke that guy. That's one of the 4 most difficult brothers in this year, Lin Feng. He is the youngest son of the Lin group, and he is very famous in the city. The fourth old man continued and said, moreover, this man is notoriously prudent. He never let anyone offend him. The second child, you must be careful when you go back. The fourth child also had contact with Lin Feng. I wish you all a happy Mid-Autumn Festival. Be careful. That would be really troublesome. Before that Lin Feng left, Du Yu saw the cold eyes staring at her second child, and at the same time, she swept over himself. He wouldn't be so unlucky. After I came to this world, the Traverser didn't have the welfare, and the Traverser had no golden fingers, but how could the Traverser give himself the ability to offend people? I have always been very low-key, just to help my second child, no way. Du Yu shook his head. Now that he wants to regret it, he has no chance. If he does it again, he will still do it. The brother in his dormitory, how could he watch him clash with others in front of his own eyes and ignore him? Just the weak chicken, dare to come to my trouble, and let him die by the time I don't know how he died. The second child waved his fist, and it seemed that he was not afraid of that Lin Feng at all. Just as they were discussing, on the high platform of the martial arts field, a grey-haired old man did not know when he appeared there. That's right, it appeared, not step by step. Students, all be quiet, line up, and the regularization ceremony is about to begin. Our regularization is hard-won, and it is the precious wealth that the seniors have left us with their lives. So, as soon as the old man came up, he started talking non-stop. Du Yu looked up, lamenting in his heart. Principal, you still look like this, how can you say that no matter what world you are in? Yes, this old man is the principal of the second high school affiliated to their national Jiaotong University. He is rarely seen to show up, but he will show up when he needs to speak, and in other words, he won't be duplicated for a few hours. Others are several leaders who take turns to speak, but for their school, the principal has always done it alone, and there is no opportunity for other leaders to speak. Therefore, in their school, other leaders generally speak very concisely, otherwise there will be not enough time. As expected, the principal came up for 2 hours without repetition. If it hadn't been for the reminder from the vice principal next to him, maybe it could last 2 hours, and if it continued like this, the time would not be enough. After finally dragging the principal down, the vice principal quickly said, "All class teachers preside over the order, don't mess up. Remember, you only have 1 day to enter the ruled derivative world, 1 day inside, 1 minute outside, and nothing else. Burden in my heart. Prepare everything you need to prepare, and don't bring anything you shouldn't." The vice principal's speech is still so concise and clear. The second child's voice rang. At this time, the fourth child is hiding behind the second child. I am afraid he is avoiding that Xiaoyun again, and I don't know what will happen to them in the future. This is the process of regularization? It seems very simple. Du Yu saw a person lined up in front of the training room, and then the training room was closed from the outside, no one could see what was going on inside. The surrounding light spots began to gather after people entered, and then suddenly accelerated to flow. After a minute, the eruption stopped, and the people inside would come out. Just looking at them, most of them were frustrated. There are 10 people in every batch, but not every batch will have one person successfully complete the law and become an awakened person. Calculate roughly, the number of people who can pass is really about 1/10. Of the remaining people, less than half became semi-awakened. A person who succeeds in becoming an awakened person will emit a complete white light circle that will last for a long time. As a semi-awakened person, the aperture on his body is mutilated and very dim. The other failed people have nothing on them. Some of these people have a calm face, and some just cried out as soon as they came out. Those who have collapsed in Zhejiang will be sent out by the security guard immediately. The atmosphere above the martial arts venue also slowly began to become tense. Hey, what kind of mentality is this? It can collapse even like this. The second child was very disdainful of them. Du Yu stared at the front, and another group of people entered. When the training room was opened, a white aperture appeared on a student. The aperture was very bright, and the student was even more conspicuous. Hey, isn't this Xi Kyungsu? It actually succeeded. Du Yu stared at her second child strangely. The second child rolled his eyes. It's just a law, it can't be true, and it's not an official statistic. Now that everyone has become an awakened person, you will be even more useless. When did I say I was going to chase her? Du Yu rolled his eyes angrily. This is a slap on the hat. Just looking at the expression of the second child, obviously not believing it, Du Yu was too lazy to explain. We are almost here, get ready. Du Yu checked the big backpack he had brought, and the things he bought, no matter whether it was useful or not, take it first. Anyway, nothing is illegal. Entering the ruled world, you cannot carry high-tech products, nor can you carry weapons that exceed a certain specification. These are all excluded. What you bought yourself, you reading www.yunshu.com certainly wouldn't make such a mistake. Haha, Asakusa deserves to be a female schoolmaster, she is beautiful and capable, and can be worthy of this son. Not far away, an annoying voice came out of Lin Feng's mouth. While this guy was talking, he squinted at his average cock, as if he was deliberately showing off his status. This kind of performance made you feel a little worried. If you are careful to be like this, you really need to be careful. Weak chicken, I am waiting for you to find trouble. The second child fought against Lin Feng in an instant. I don't know, I thought my second child was a traverser, this kind of undaunted personality, really looks like it. Is it true that he is really a fake traverser, or is a foil? Was thinking, their batch has arrived. Don't be stunned, go in quickly. Do you need an inspection? It turned out that there was a person in charge of the inspection in front of the incubator, holding a metal rod in his hand. Let's check it, don't bring anything wrong and it won't be good. The boss helped his eyes and said. Leave me aside for the toad's style. This young master is not someone who doesn't understand anything. Lin Feng followed closely, and he was actually the same group as them. Fortunately, this guy is not in their class, otherwise the class would have been misty. The reception staff was not angry, and while scanning them back and forth with a metal rod, they explained the things that need attention. It turns out that this thing is not called a training warehouse, but a boat of the world. It means a tool to send people to other worlds, but this one is specially made and used to complete regularization. Soon a few people completed the examination, and then walked into the huge world ship. As the world ship slowly closed, everything around it seemed to be far away from him. Task: kill at will, kill any creature can be submitted. Looking at the panel that suddenly appeared in front of him, Yu was not surprised. The rule-based guide also contains explanations in this regard. Although everything in the process of paraphrasing can't be said, some people still avoid this rule, and record some things that are known to the general public, and finally form this regularized guide. It can be said that although this thing is not valuable, it is the crystallization left by the predecessors. According to the book, the regularization encounters usually those types, including collection, capture, touching, killing, completing certain conditions, etc. This time it should be the most common type of kill. Recalling what he had seen in the book of the rularization guide, Yu had a general understanding of this mission. This kind of killing mission requires killing the creatures here, no matter what it is, even a bug. But the quality of killing creatures represents the evaluation level. If you really kill the bugs and turn in the task, the result will definitely be a failure. If it kills an ordinary animal and does not have too strong combat effectiveness, it is basically a half-awakened one. Only those whose killing strength reaches a certain level are the awakened ones. This is why there are so few awakened ones, but there are many half-awakened ones. Many people who can't meet the requirements will go back. In addition, the ruled guide also states that the stronger the target, the better. Although the benefits of killing high-level creatures are not explained, this condition is indeed highlighted, which is obviously very meaningful. Then, let's find out what powerful existence is. Look at the look here, this time I encountered an animal type. The terrain here is a big canyon, surrounded by many small bugs, there are also pheasants and rabbits, I don't know if there are any beasts. To be honest, Yu was a little nervous, he didn't know if his strength had a chance of winning against the beast. Because I exercised for 2 days, I didn't even have the experience of fighting against each other, let alone hunting. Perhaps the original Yu did this before, but the memory has disappeared, and he is not worried that it is impossible. There is no bottom in my heart, I can only go forward, but fortunately I have a full day here. As for killing one casually, Yu wouldn't do this kind of thing. Unless there is really no alternative, this option will not be considered. If you want to achieve high levels in the future, you must get the best results. Does my talent belong to the summoning element? So I will become a summoner in the future. While walking, do you recall some of the annotations on the regularization guide? Since most of them were animals, he was going through a summoning system test. Everyone has their own different talents. At the beginning of the rule, they will be assigned to different derived worlds according to their talents to complete tasks in different worlds. Every world, the final ruled result is different. It's like what I'm experiencing now, that is, I am biased towards the summoner type. In other words, it will be easier to learn summoner type skills by yourself in the future, with less consumption, and the effect will be better. It is said that the ability of a summoner to summon is much stronger than that of other professions. But this doesn't mean that you can't learn other types of skills. Even a wizard can learn the skills of warriors, but I don't know what effect it can achieve. Learning skills that don't fit one's own type, at least double the consumption, and at most only 80% of the power displayed, it can be said that the gain is not worth the loss. The lower the fit with itself, the greater the consumption and the worse the effect. So it is generally not a special situation, no one will learn skills different from their own talents. Although it is not very ideal, it is not bad. The summoning system seems to be one of the most powerful and easy to adapt to the profession in the early stage. Du Yu continued walking, continuing to think. Drew out his long sword in his hand and looked around vigilantly. His long sword is made of ordinary stainless steel, so it can be brought into it. If it is an alloy weapon, there is no way to bring it into the derivative world. Derivative worlds are quite repulsive to items that are different from their own world, which can be found in the ruled guide. Come out and let me have a look. At least there will be a wolf or something. Du Yu muttered while looking along the Grand Canyon. Suddenly, the grass shook. Du Yu almost instinctively pierced out the long sword in his hand. Du Yu didn't know what had happened until after the shot. Haha, physical instinct is faster than thinking, I really have a talent for swordsmanship. Pulling aside the grass, Du Yu was a little excited when he saw his long sword pierced a rabbit. Task: kill a rabbit. You read www.yuyuganshu.com whether to submit the task. The panel automatically popped up, and Du Yu quickly denied it in his heart, and the window for submitting the task disappeared immediately. Task: the kill has been completed, you can submit the task at any time. It's so humane. Du Yu shook his head, thinking of closing the panel, and the panel disappeared. After his own tossing, Du Yu's nervous mood finally relaxed a lot. There are so many rabbits here, there must be something to eat rabbits. Most of the rabbits can only be killed to become semi-professionals. If you kill a powerful one, it will be fine. Du Yu walked to himself. In the air, an eagle flew quickly, and Du Yu was very greedy. This is the top creature in nature, it would be nice if you could kill it yourself. It's a pity that I learned swordsmanship, not archery. It's a pity, if I can fall in front of me, I really have to do well, isn't it? Du Yu's eyes widened, and the eagle in front flew over his head instantly at low altitude, but suddenly a black shadow shot out from the ground, and the eagle in the sky disappeared. This is a spike, killing the eagle instantly, which means that there is a powerful creature ahead. It seems that this should not be a natural creature that I understand. When encountering such creatures in the derived world, ordinary people like me cannot deal with it. The book warns that you must evacuate when you encounter this kind of thing. Although dying here will not really die, but it will leave one with serious sequelae. However, he couldn't be reconciled if he didn't go over and take a look. Just take a look, if you really can't deal with it, then evacuate. Du Yu took a deep breath, relaxed, and walked over slowly. From the soil in front, we approached little by little, and finally, the huge creature appeared in front of her eyes. I can deal with this stuff? Why is there such a thing here? Du Yu finally knows why there are no beasts in this place. There is such a monster, what beasts dare to approach here? In front of him, there is a huge big toad. There are big toads that are more than 4 meters tall, blue-yellow, and have big bumps on their body. This look is not good looking at all. The most frightening thing is the surrounding environment. The surrounding ground and cliffs are pitted in many places, and I don't know if they were punched out or corroded. There are still a lot of bones on the ground. At first glance, some large beasts left behind. Look at the shape of these bones. Maybe because they entered this place by mistake, they were killed by this big toad. This body is too big, leaving bones, which means that this toad still has no teeth, so it can't swallow this kind of prey. My small body may be stuffy in the past. You took a deep breath, his eyes condensed suddenly, because he saw a corpse next to him who had just died. This should be a kind of deer, but it is not small in size. The wound on the body is a hole. But this hole exudes a strong chill, as if it was pierced by an ice cone. It seems that this toad is still a Warcraft category. I am a big winner. The book said that it is basically difficult to encounter the existence of Warcraft at this level of regularization. Duomo, he swallowed a mouthful of saliva. I felt that the big toad glanced towards him, but did not attack. Didn't know if it was because he was full, or felt that he was not threatened. Even if you die in a regular ceremony, you won't really die, but it's dangerous if you fail. The second time of regularization, you will have to pay yourself, but the price is really terrifying, and the conditions of your own family can't support yourself to do it again. Damn it, do you really want to be the same as the second child said, can't become an awakened one, can only pursue a half-awakened one. It's okay to kill a rabbit or something by yourself. Wait, rabbit, I don't know if this toad eats rabbit. As soon as he finished speaking, he saw a rabbit running out of the grass. The big toad opened his mouth, a black shadow flashed by, and the rabbit disappeared. It should be eating the rabbit as a bug with your tongue. In that case, let's fight it. There is this big toad here, there will definitely not be a big beast, at least there is little hope of finding it within a day. Either become a semi-awakened person or fight for it. If I kill a monster, my potential will become great. You felt as if he was hypnotizing himself. It just happens that there are lichen flowers here, so it doesn't hurt to use it. If it doesn't work, let's talk about it at that time. You is ready to fight. Daffodil is a kind of anesthetic in Chinese medicine, and its anesthetic effect is very strong, and it will be fatal if it is used too much. Yangjianhua also has a name called mandala, which I saw when I was curious before. There are many such plants in the place where I once lived. Unexpectedly, in this ruled derivative world, I actually saw this kind of herbal medicine. Looks the same, but I don't know if it works. Most people in this world basically don't study herbal medicine. The Chinese medicine in the record has long been transformed, and mainly began to study various potions. The treatment of ordinary people has basically been replaced by Western medicine. Only some ancient books have records of this kind of ordinary Chinese medicine. You wouldn't know if his soul hadn't come from another earth. Perhaps to complete the trial of law, what is really needed is not combat power, maybe. You quickly ran to the place before, then opened his backpack, and took out the covers one by one. This is not an ordinary cover, but a small animal such as rabbits and pheasants. The design is very exquisite, but it is not a high-tech product, so it can be easily brought into it without breaking the regulations. These things were bought in the big bag back then, and the second child said it was useless. Use this thing to catch small animals like rabbits, that is, to complete the half-awakening. But relying on their own strength, as long as they are not too weak, whether or not half-awakened this thing has no effect at all. If you want to pursue the status of the awakened, you will definitely look down on this thing. Unexpectedly, with the idea of not taking nothing for nothing, the things he brought are now available. I remember a lot of rabbits here, so let's start here. Let me see if this trap is useful. You laid out the surroundings. He didn't know how to judge which path the rabbit would take, after all, he was not a professional hunter. But there are so many rabbits here, how useful it is. There are 30 cases in this package, and the people who wanted to design this package also thought of this situation. Just as Duyu was laying out the cover, there was a click on his face. Looking back, Duyu smiled. Haha, I caught it. A hapless rabbit had a quilt around his neck. The rabbit ran forward frantically, and strangled himself to death. It's better to die, so that it will be easier to complete my plan. Did not continue to arrange the cover, Duyu stepped forward to pick up the rabbit, and then came to a lily flower. After thinking for a while, he picked off the fruit of lily flower and stuffed it into the rabbit's mouth. Is full of belly, this rabbit is already fat and not decent. That's it. The digestive ability of such a big toad should be very strong. Duyu picked up the rabbit and ran towards the front. Near the toad, Duyu stopped cautiously. After careful observation from the left and right, Duyu suddenly threw the rabbit over. Haha, hurry up and eat my rabbit with added ingredients. Duyu shouted in his heart, while the rabbit crossed an arc and fell towards the toad. Strange, why don't you eat it? The rabbit fell on the ground and there was a muffled noise, but the toad simply ignored it. You can't see it, right? It is said that the toad can only see things that can move. As soon as he finished muttering, Duyu saw the big toad step forward and trampled the rabbit to the ground. Under the big eyes squint, you can clearly see. This monster toad and the general toad are probably not the same species. Since I can see it, why not eat it? If it doesn't work, I can only try my luck. Duyu became anxious. If he couldn't become an awakened one, how could he get ahead? Spell one last, don't eat the dead, always eat the living. Duyu turned his head and left. He didn't know if Big Toad found himself, but he couldn't die anyway this time, so he just tried it once. Soon, Duyu returned to the place where he caught the rabbit. There are a lot of rabbits here, even white ones. Duyu looked at the scene in front of him. The trap he didn't set completely, all caught 3 rabbits, one was wrapped around his neck, and finally he was strangled to death. One tied to the leg, and the last tied to the waist, and couldn't escape. 2 live ones, I'll use you. Duyu thought for a while, restored the trap that was touched, changed a place to place it, and then took out the rest of his trap cover for use. I didn't plan to take these things back. There are no beasts here all year round, and no humans have been here, so rabbits are a bit overwhelmed, and the big toads may not be able to eat so much. Therefore, even this white rabbit, which can never survive in nature, can grow so big here. Duyu the 2 living rabbits and brought them to the side of the soil slope. Such a cute little bunny, let's be eaten by a big toad. Duyu squeezed the white rabbit's mouth with an evil look, and stuffed the thorny daisy fruit one by one. In this way, the rabbit basically can't live, but it shouldn't die in a short time. Success or failure depends on this. Let's go, little rabbit. Duyu roared in his heart and threw the rabbit over again. The result is the same as before. When the rabbit is in the air, the toad doesn't move at all. But when the rabbit fell to the ground and began to struggle, the expression in the big toad's eyes changed. Seeing the rabbit struggling to get up, preparing to escape, the big toad finally couldn't bear it. Such a large body, but the food here is not so rich, usually you have to minimize activities to maintain it. How can the big toad let go of the food that is hard to come across? Opening his mouth, a black light flashed, and the rabbit disappeared. Duyu almost jumped up happily. That's great, I finally ate it. I knew, why would you not want to eat such a cute little bunny? A big rock fell in Duyu's heart. There is one more, the same as before, and throw it over after handling it. Sure enough, the big toad also ate the rabbit. It seems that you just don't like to eat them to death. If you can swallow them alive, you might like them all. After just waiting for a while, the big toad still didn't react at all. Duyu was a little strange. Why haven't I reacted yet? It's not that the effect of the Yangjinhua here is not good. Wait, is it because of the lack of medicinal power for such a big toad? Do you thought about it for a while? When the rabbit was stuffed into the fruit of the lichen flower by himself, it was obviously slower to move. This is not just as simple as internal injuries, it shows that this medicine is definitely useful. Since the amount is not enough, it would be better to increase it. Du Yu turned around and ran back. As expected, another rabbit was caught in this place. More this time, 5 in total. As before, Du Yu the rabbit and waited for the place before starting to feed the medicine. Other traps recover, waiting for the next capture. After throwing it back and forth several times, Du Yu found that as long as he arrived, the big toad would look towards him, which was obviously treating himself as a breeder. Sure enough, I knew that this toad must be too lazy to care because I felt that I was not threatening. Maybe it was because I hadn't seen human beings and I didn't know if I could eat it, or it would have been eaten a long time ago. Du Yu continued to feed the big toad while complaining about himself. Tossing back and forth for more than 5 hours, probably that much time, there are more than 60 rabbits that have been caught. Keep on catching, the rabbit in the place I found is going to be extinct, I'm afraid I will have to change the place. Isn't it immune to Yangjinhua? If that's the case, didn't I do useless work? Du Yu had some doubts, whether his own method was useful, but already at this point, Du Yu could only stick to it. While catching the rabbit, Du Yu went around to see it, except for small animals such as rabbits and pheasants, there are really no beasts here. Probably, it would be impossible for a large creature to come over for several days. The big toad in front of me, this is my only chance. Kept busy, when Du Yu was busy here for more than 8 hours, finally, the big toad had a problem. The big toad, which was originally intact, began to tremble, and squatted on the ground, making a cooing cry. It looks very uncomfortable, with 4 legs fluttering on the ground, but usually there is no such reaction. It's great, it worked. Du Yu found that the rabbit he threw over, the big toad did not continue to eat, but was in midair, and was smashed to pieces by an ice arrow that appeared out of thin air. Yu reading www.youcanshu.com. Did you find it? It's a pity that it's too late. If you don't eat it now, it means that the effect is really effective. Big toad, you can go to me obediently. Du Yu waited, and the big toad's body grew more and more weak. He kept attacking the surroundings, not knowing whether he was venting or what he was doing. The tongue hits the tree, breaks the tree, hits the stone, smashes the stone. There are often ice arrows flying out, and the attack power is even more terrifying. Before a frosty arrow flew past him, Du Yu immediately felt cold all over, almost stiff. This kind of attack is simply not something ordinary people can bear. If someone else encounters it, I'm afraid they will be killed in addition to running away. To be safe, Du Yu stayed away from the big toad and observed from a distance. As time passed, my own medicine was slow to work, but the effect was vague at all. 2 hours later, the big toad is getting weaker and weaker, all 4 legs are almost stiff, and the breath is getting weaker and weaker. 20 minutes ago, Big Toad hadn't continued to release Frostbolt, and his tongue attack had stopped long ago. Looking at it, I am afraid that I have no strength. This wild big toad without enemies should not pretend to be dead. Secretly thought about it, Du Yu's eyes became determined. I've done so much, and I'm just the last step to fight for it. I thought there was no need to fight, but now it seems that I will fight in the end. Du Yu drew out his long sword, walked over slowly, carefully testing. When he found that the big toad really didn't react to him, Du Yu pretended to be courageous, walked around from the side, and climbed behind the big toad. Stubbornly grabbed a bump on the big toad, Du Yu pointed the long sword at the bottom and stabbed it down.